There was a phase in my life when I woke up every single day with the same feeling. Nothing ever changed. I worked, hustled, pushed myself, but it felt like I was always stuck in the same place. That's when I started noticing something curious. The millionaire women I admired didn't have extraordinary routines. They weren't waiting for big opportunities or radical changes. The difference was in the daily rituals, small gestures that seemed ordinary, but when repeated consistently, created massive results. I realized that wealth isn't built only when you close a deal or make a big investment. It's born out of the choices you repeat every day, in the way you carry yourself when you wake up, in the boundaries you uphold, in the habits no one sees. And when I started applying those rituals to my own routine, I understood. It's not about luck. It's about discipline. If this makes sense to you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and come with me to discover 7 rituals you can copy today to transform your financial life. Ritual 1. They start the day deciding who they'll be, not just what they'll do. For a long time, my mornings were chaotic. I'd wake up already tired, grab my phone, dive into messages, and let the day decide who I was going to be. And without realizing it, I kept repeating the same version of myself. Reactive, anxious, too busy to notice where I was heading. It was only when I observed millionaire women up close that I noticed the pattern. They don't start the day reacting. They start by deciding who they want to be. Before looking at commitments, they connect with identity. They pause, breathe, align their thoughts, and decide, today, I will act as the woman who leads my life. When I first tried it, it felt too simple. But soon I saw the impact. Instead of chasing after the day, I started leading it. Creating a morning intention gave me strength to make better choices, from the smallest ones to the big ones. It wasn't just about writing goals. It was about taking the posture of someone already living the life she desires. And that changes how you speak, how you respond, how you spend, how you behave. Now I don't start anything without asking myself first, who do I want to be today? And holding on to that answer guides every step. Comment, I decide who I'll be every morning. If you've also realized that your identity is built every single day, even before your tasks. Ritual 2, they treat their body as part of their wealth strategy. I used to think taking care of my body was vanity. That exercise, balanced eating, and regulated sleep were details I could leave for later, when I had time. But that later never came. Meanwhile, I lived tired, drained, trying to build a big life on a weak foundation. Watching millionaire women, I realized something essential. They don't treat the body as aesthetics, but as strategy. They understand that mental clarity, discipline, and strength don't come only from willpower. They come from a body that sustains you. When I started changing that, the difference was immediate. I didn't need to become an athlete or follow impossible diets. I just adjusted small things, going to bed earlier, drinking more water, moving my body every day, even if just for 20 minutes. And that consistency became fuel. I woke up more present, made firmer decisions, and most importantly, had the energy to sustain what I wanted to build. The body is the house where the mind lives. And how could I expect a millionaire mind to live in a neglected space? Now, taking care of myself isn't a luxury. It's the foundation. It's part of the strategy that sustains my wealth. Comment, my body is part of my wealth. If you've also understood that prosperity requires energy, and energy is born from daily care. Ritual 3, they manage their money every day, even if just for a few minutes. For a long time, I was afraid to look at my bank account. It felt like facing the numbers would expose me, remind me of failures, and of how much I hadn't achieved yet. So I avoided it, postponed it, and only checked when there was no other choice. And of course, I lived improvising, until I realized something that changed my perspective. Millionaire women don't run from the numbers, they master them. And not because they love spreadsheets or have a perfect relationship with money, but because they understand that daily consistency is worth more than occasional big check-ins. When I decided to apply this ritual, I didn't create anything complicated. I just spent a few minutes a day reviewing my expenses, noting my income, mentally organizing what I had and what was coming. It was quick but powerful, because every daily check pulled me out of the dark and put me in control. That habit taught me that money isn't a monster. It's neutral. I'm the one who gives it weight. And when I face it, it stops being a ghost and becomes a tool. Today, I don't let a single day go by without having clarity about my money. And that clarity, even simple, gave me confidence and security. Comment, I check my numbers every day. If you've also realized that wealth begins with the courage to face what's already in your account. Ritual 4, they feed their mind with what uplifts, not what drains. For a long time, I consumed everything that showed up on the screen. Negative news, gossip, endless comparisons on social media. It was automatic. I used to say I was relaxing, but in reality I was just filling myself with noise. And that noise was shaping how I thought without me even noticing. I woke up with less energy, more insecurity, and always feeling like everyone else was light years ahead of me. Until I understood something obvious that I had never really practiced. What I feed my mind becomes my thinking pattern. And thought is the root of every choice. Millionaire women know this. They filter what they consume with discipline. They choose what they listen to, what they read, what they watch, not out of arrogance, but because they know the mind needs nourishment just as much as the body. When I started applying this ritual, I swapped some of my hours on social media for books, videos, podcasts that expanded me. At first it felt small, but soon my way of thinking changed. My ideas became more creative. My focus became sharper, and my self-esteem grew because I surrounded myself with inputs that lifted me up, not ones that made me doubt myself. Now I no longer feed on distraction. I choose content that builds me. Comment: I feed my mind with wealth. If you've also realized that what goes into your head defines what comes out in your life. Ritual 5. They treat their commitments as priorities, not options. I used to be the person who constantly pushed my own goals aside. If something unexpected came up, I'd abandon my plan. If someone called me, I'd say yes, even when I knew I was saying no to myself. And in the end, my personal promises always ended up at the bottom of the list. Watching Millionaire women, I noticed something. They don't negotiate with their internal commitments. If they decide to invest, they organize their life around it. If they set a study or workout time, they treat it as an absolute priority. They don't wait to have time, they create space. When I started applying this ritual, I realized it wasn't about being inflexible. It was about respecting what I said I wanted. And the more I honored my own commitments, the more my self-esteem grew. Because there's no greater confidence than believing in yourself. And that confidence is born when you keep your promises. Now, if I schedule with myself, I show up. If I decide to save, I save. If I plan to study, I show up for me. Not because the world is demanding it, but because I've learned that my word matters. Comment: I keep the promises I make to myself. If you've also realized that discipline isn't a prison, it's self-respect. Ritual 6. They reserve moments of silence to listen to themselves. My life used to be constant noise. Phone buzzing, TV always on in the background, people giving opinions, social media shouting patterns I was supposed to follow. And in the middle of all that noise, I stopped hearing my own voice. I made decisions guided by fear of being left behind, by comparison, by the anxiety of pleasing others. But deep down, I knew none of that reflected who I really was. That's when I noticed something in the millionaire women I observed. They cultivate moments of silence. It's not about eternal isolation, but about creating daily pauses to listen to themselves before listening to the world. They write, meditate, walk without headphones, take deep breaths. And in those spaces, they realign their compass. When I first tried it, it felt uncomfortable. In silence, doubts, fears, memories would surface. But also in silence came answers I would never have found in the noise. Ideas, clarity, courage. This ritual became my sacred space, a reminder that I don't need to shout to exist. I need to listen to myself to align. Today, those minutes of silence strengthen me more than any external stimulus. They remind me that the woman I want to be is already here, just waiting for space to emerge. Comment: I create silence to hear myself. If you've also realized that clarity isn't born in noise, but in the courage to listen. Ritual 7. They close the day with review. Not regret. I used to end my days with a heavy mind. I'd go to bed exhausted, thinking about everything I hadn't done, what was missing, what I could have done better. It was as if every night was a silent list of regrets. And waking up the next day was already hard because I carried yesterday's weight with me. It was only by observing millionaire women that I noticed the difference. They don't end the day with guilt. They end it with review. They don't punish themselves for what didn't go perfectly. They look at it clearly, extract the lesson, and adjust the next step. They turn mistakes into strategy. So I decided to apply this ritual. Every night, I take a few minutes to review my day. What did I do well? What can I improve? Where did I betray myself? Where was I faithful to my vision? It's not a judgment session. It's an honest conversation with myself. And that shifted my energy. Instead of going to sleep in debt with my conscience, I go to bed in peace, knowing that tomorrow I'll have another chance to fix it. And that lightness gives me strength to keep going, without dragging yesterday along as baggage. Now my days don't pile up as frustration. They add up as progress. And every night has become a bridge, not a prison. Comment, I review my day. I don't blame myself for it. If you've also realized that growth comes from awareness, not self-condemnation. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that a millionaire life doesn't come from a single grand gesture. It's built quietly, in the sum of small rituals that seem too ordinary to notice. But it's exactly that daily repetition that shapes identity, mindset, and inevitably results. These 7 rituals aren't far from your reality. They don't demand more hours in your day, prior wealth, or perfect conditions. They demand a decision. The decision to stop living on improvisation and start sustaining a version of yourself that doesn't depend on luck, but on intention. When I changed my mornings, my silences, my self-care, my financial and emotional choices, the woman I used to be no longer fit me. And it was like that, ritual after ritual, that the transformation started becoming visible. Comment, I choose my wealth rituals. If you've also decided to start applying today, what can change your tomorrow? And of course, if this content strengthened you, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also needs to learn how to build prosperity in practice.